So in today's video, we'll be discussing the rise of Alex Hormozi's glory and a little bit of his story going into everything he's accomplished in his journey, and also some maxims and quotes you can learn from his story and some other entrepreneurs that we weaved into everything, just to make it as comprehensive and impactful as possible. So let's just start at the beginning of his story. So he was born in 1988 to an Iranian American family. His dad had big dreams for him and expected a lot. Alex worked hard, finished college early, and got a six-figure consulting job right out of college. And at 22, he had what looked like the perfect life, money, status, and success, but inside he felt empty. And he said, I realized I was living a life my father wanted me to live. And this ties directly into what Steve Jobs also went through. And he said, this is a quote from Steve Jobs, and he said, your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Right? And this ties into Alex Hormozi's story by highlighting the emptiness of following external expectations by his father, much like how Alex broke free from his father's dreams to pursue his own entrepreneurial path, avoiding a life of regret from unfulfilled personal goals. And that the regret also is from Jeff Bezos, the regret minimization framework, where he left his job as well. So after reading a question from Harvard, how does this path serve your own goals? He knew he had no answer. That's when he decided to leave safety behind. He called his dad and said, I'm moving to California to open a gym. And this was halfway through the country as he drove to California when he called his dad. And his father was obviously furious, but Alex knew that this was his path, saying, I had to let my dad's dream die for mine to live. Leaving meant losing approval and security, but it also meant betting on himself. So this is basically Jeff Bezos leaving Wall Street to start Amazon. He was earning a lot of money on Wall Street to start Amazon, and Alex believed you'll never regret taking a chance and betting on yourself. In 2013, at just 23, he opened his first gym and burned his safety net for good. So here's a quote that to tie everything together. Alex said, quit the job, launch the business, take the risk, and shoot the shot. And no one gets to the end of their life and says, I wish I had played it safe. Don't let your dreams die with you. So that's a perfect way to sum up this early start of his career.
I think the beauty of the first part of his career is almost like a lot of people that listen to us right now, in the beginning of any entrepreneurial journey, right? We tend to sit in a situation where we are afraid to take the leap of faith, to follow that inner desire that we have, or we have some doubts or whatever. But like Alex, this is one of Alex's quotes as well, right? In the face of guaranteed misery, any other option is better, right? And so if you're in a situation where you're doing a job and you are seeing yourself 10 years later down the line, whoever that person is, visualize that person, right? How he's living, how much money he's making, where he's staying, like his house, his family situation, how much time he spent working in that work environment. If that person is unhappier than or if you envision yourself 10 years later where you are right now and that person is still unhappy or unfulfilled, like that's guaranteed misery, right? So any other option is better. And when I was in a situation where I had to decide to pivot into the business I wanted to do, I saw myself 10 years down the line and I was like, there's no ways in hell I'm staying here, right? I'm willing to lay everything down and put everything on the line for a better future, right? So in the face of guaranteed misery, any other option is better. That's also from Alex. So launching the first gyms and meeting Layla, his wife and business partner. So Alex's first gym took off fast. Fitness had always been his passion. And passion is sort of like a theme that plays a big role in his life actually, which is fairly cool, so I'll get back to that in a second. And now it was his business. Within a year, he owned 5 gyms and made about $20,000 a month in profit. But he soon realized he didn't love running gyms, he loved building them. That's when he had a new idea, helping other gym owners launch and grow. And so Alex had no idea what career to pivot into, right? Just like everybody else. Yet he followed his passion and curiosity, and that led to him building and owning gyms. And later he realized enjoying growing and launching them more than owning them, right? And I think that's a beautiful way to look at it, right? If you don't know what you want to do, Alex just followed his passion. And that led to him owning a gym, and then later on realizing that he likes scaling it more than just owning it and running it, right? And that insight only came from doing. Like Steve Jobs said, you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards, right? Most founders wait to find the perfect niche before starting, but Alex's story shows the opposite. Clarity comes from movement. You figure out what you're meant to do by being in the game, not sitting on the sidelines, right? Spending time in the market. There's no perfect niche, business model, whatever. It's essentially you'll figure out what the market needs or what solutions or problems they have, and then solutions you can give to them. So around that time, he met Layla, who would become his wife and business partner. Together, they traveled city to city, helping gyms launch, fill up, and grow. By 25, Alex was known across the fitness world, Alex and Layla, across the fitness world. He often said, you're lucky if you find even one person who believes in you more than you believe in yourself, and never let them go. For Alex, that person was Layla. And it's actually a cool story. I think Layla plays a very big role in Alex's entire success story, which you'll see as we uncover the rest of his journey.
It's pretty crazy that in 2 years he was able to be like the king of his industry already. That just goes to show this guy is a bit built different. Most people 2 years in the entrepreneurship journey haven't really done anything yet. And in 2 years he's literally like the top of his industry. He was known across the fitness world. This guy's a bit built different. So the next paragraph, the next chapter is him hitting absolute rock bottom. So we're going to discuss burnout, betrayal, and basically losing everything. So he was at the top of the world, and now you'll see he's about to lose everything. So even though Alex's businesses was making a lot of money, $20,000 a month in profit roughly, or even more by then, his life behind the scenes was falling apart. He was living out of a suitcase, working 16-hour days, and drowning in stress. To cope, he started drinking half a bottle of whiskey every night just to feel normal. Then things got worse. A dishonest partner or business partner stole from him, their payments accounts were frozen, and the company went broke. So here's a quote from James Dyson to really extrapolate this. So there were 5,126 failures that James Dyson went through in his journey, but I learned from each one. That's why I came up with a solution. So I don't mind failure. This relates to Alex's journey through betrayal, financial ruin, and refund scams from his business partner, where he treated failures as learning opportunities. So, I don't know where I heard this, but on a YouTube video, he's obviously now way more aware of business partners and people he does business with because of the thing he went through with his previous business partner where he essentially lost everything. So he's saying we treated failures as learning opportunities to pivot his broken model. Much like Dyson's persistence, prototypes led to innovation despite repeated setbacks. So he went from running a thriving business to having just $1,000 left and no way to finish his projects. So even with Elon Musk, right? He sold PayPal for $180 million in 2022, invested nearly all of it into SpaceX and Tesla, which were basically going down, and all the people from finance and everything were saying, oh, this is doomed to fail. He even slept on factory floors, eating cold food for months. And Alex Hormozi also did that. There was like I think this thumbnail where he was, or photo, where he was literally sleeping on the gym floor. So this is almost exactly like Elon, but Elon was just playing with bigger stakes. PayPal, $180 million, way more than Alex at the time, but same premise. And he nearly went bankrupt in 2008. So you'll see there, from 2002 to 2008, so that's basically 6 years of struggling with this business, Elon Musk. So that also shows an extreme amount of resilience and all those qualities, like every single one of them. And with just weeks of cash left with his business. So just as Alex hit rock bottom with $1,000 left and rebuilt his gym businesses from his in-laws' spare room. So it's basically Layla's parents' like a spare bedroom. So broken, ashamed, after he's got $1,000 left, Alex and Layla moved into her parents' spare bedroom. He felt like he failed everyone, especially her. At his lowest point, he told her, I think you should leave me. I'm a sinking ship. But Layla refused. She looked at him and said, I would sleep under a bridge if it came to that. That one sentence changed everything. A belief gave him hope again. And sometimes you start believing in yourself only because someone else believes in you first, he later said. So, perfect quote to tie that in. The fastest way to go from broke to rich is to go from broke to desperate. So he was definitely pretty desperate in this sense. Sleeping in his, girlfriend's parents' spare bedroom after being the success story, right? Like this is actually really bad. If you really think about it, like you are the top of your industry, from 22 to 25, getting all the success, you're not like, you are the hot shot, like top of your league, and then basically losing everything. So I believe that's where Alex Hormozi's ego death came in. I'm pretty sure, like where he's got his views now of like, nothing really matters and like, meaning and stuff like that. I think that's where it originated from. So with nothing left to lose, they started over using a risky payment processor. They thought, they fought to keep their business alive and pulled off a gym launch that made $330,000 in a single month. But soon, some more failures. Refund requests flooded in. Gym owners were scamming him, telling members to get refunds so they could pocket the money themselves. It crushed him. The more I sold, the more refunds came in, he said. At his breaking point, Alex realized the business model was broken. So, a quote to tie that in, where he mentioned that, or he basically found out the business model was broken. The only reason he found that out is by doing it, right? And failing and just essentially putting one foot forward in front of the other. He said every single problem I've ever had in business was solved by building a better offer. So in that sense, the offer was broken. Instead of quitting, he and Layla made a new choice to let go of what failed and start fresh.
I think what's very prevalent here, but also looking at different founders, right? Like James Dyson is the first person that comes to mind right now. He made 5,100 and something prototypes, right? Just like Alex here, you realize that this thing was broken, or his payment processor got stuffed, or he got scammed by his other business partner, right? Essentially, business works as follows, or at least that's what I've learned through these founders and through my own experiences. There's a certain, like you got a certain goal, your current situation, and then you got a lot of problems, problems you need to solve on your way there. And some problems only reveal themselves in the journey, right? Most problems. And usually what happens is, as soon as you solve one problem, a new one arises you to solve, right? That's business. And I think the best way to almost like 100% guarantee success is just to never stop, going. And if you can stay into one business model, there will be a point where you have solved most of the problems, or the biggest ones, right? That withholds you from being profitable. And so in Dyson's case, what's his name?
James Dyson.
Yeah, it's a James Dyson. So in James's case, right, he had to make 5,100 prototypes before he created the vacuum that doesn't have a bag, right? That's like the main thing. And so in his case, that's probably how long it took, right? That's the price of the dream he prayed for. And with Alex, he had to go through all these things. Even with James, he also got, so he didn't have a patent, a patent or whatever on his previous product that he was making, and it was linked to the business. And so when he lost the business, he lost like the prototype he was working on as well for 5 years. And so in that situation, he also learned that your business partner, patents, like the actual business side of like the document side is extremely important. And he wouldn't have learned that if he didn't go through it. So in the moment, it feels like hell, but looking back on it, you can connect the dots, like Steve Jobs said.
And also, I think you mentioned the only way to really quit or to guarantee success is to not quit. And I think another one is to have the right expectations. People think there are going to be no problems. There's guaranteed problems. So set the expectations straight. And Elon said, you get paid in direct proportion to the difficulty of problems you solve. So if you solve less valuable problems, like for example, maybe flipping burgers, you're not going to be paid as much because it's not as valuable of a problem. But making the human consciousness multi-planetary species is a massive problem. That's why it's the richest person in the world. And the thing about setting expectations is the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? Where you get those that you talk about a lot. Essentially uninformed optimism, then informed pessimism. Then you realize all those problems. When you're in the beginning, this is the thing about setting expectations. You have uninformed optimism. You're not aware of all the problems that are going to be there. And then number 2 is informed pessimism. Now you're aware of the problems. And then crisis of meaning, you're like, shit, this is way harder than I thought. And then the keep going comes in, where you're now informed optimistic, and then you achieve the goal.
Yeah, I mean, that's good.
Having the right expectations and not quitting is 99% way to guarantee success.
And that's why, you know, if you look at, you know, all the greatest founders, they were all obsessed with their craft, right? You can call it passion or whatever, and they were extremely focused. And that is what will lead to not giving up. Because if you have the right expectations, or if you just spend time in the market for long enough, you will find a way to do the thing better than what you're doing it right now, and that will lead to success. So people that are obsessed, just, you know, they will make it happen because they're just not going to give up. And that's, I think, majority of it, right? Yeah, so pivot to a winning model, licensing, gym launch. So this is back to Alex's backstory, right? So with their business collapsing, Alex and Layla had to start over. Layla had a small online fitness program called Queen Transformation. They made a few $1,000s a month. So this was back as soon as these things fell apart, right? It was simple, digital, and profitable. Out of desperation, they shut down their old operations and went all in on this program. Within 2 weeks, it was making $2,000 a day, enough to survive and clear debt. So around $60,000 a month. For the first time in years.
That's $2,000 a day.
Yeah, so $6,000 a month.
Oh yeah, I thought you said rand.
Yeah. For the first time in years, Alex saw a light at the end of the tunnel. That's pretty profound, right? I think I'm going to come back to a James Dyson quote again. But Alex saw a light at the end of the for the first time in years, Alex saw a light at the end of the tunnel. For the first time in years, he saw some hope, right? So that means he was operating out of a place of, whether that be confusion, fear, doubt, whatever, right? He's in a situation right now where, wait, let's first do this. You can't escape pain, only decide which kind is worth enduring, right? So the previous quote that I just read emphasizes the fact that, you know, he was suffering through all of that, right? And you can't escape suffering in this life. You can only decide which suffering you're willing to endure and if it's worth enduring, right? Are you going to suffer to get a six-pack, or are you going to suffer while being fat, right? Both of them are terrible to get to a large degree, but the one just has a better outcome. So for the first time in years, Alex was taking action despite everything not working out. Staying with his girlfriend's parents, right? Father not, he's not on speaking terms with his father. All these previous businesses failed. And he came out of a DUI, right? Driving under influence. So, you know, he was on a fairly low point in his life. Nothing was working, and only now he saw some light at the end of the tunnel. Think about that, right? Maybe all the suffering is what it takes to be great, right? The price of the dream that he prayed for. So Steve Jobs said, "I'm convinced that about half of what separates successful entrepreneurs from the non-successful ones is pure perseverance."
And this goes completely contrary to the school system, right? Where it's all about IQ and where they literally punish you if you make a mistake. But in business, you are actively looking for failures and mistakes. And failure is part of the journey. If you don't want failure, you don't want success.
Yeah.
So it's pure perseverance. So the school system kind of teaches you that IQ and how well you did at school, but it doesn't really teach perseverance in school.
The beauty of
more sport.
Yeah. So the reason why I'm referencing James Dyson a lot is just because I recently sort of essentially read his biography as well, or listened to it. But he was so obsessed with hiring people that he started his own university to get people to get good quality talent, because he didn't believe in the schooling system. Can you believe it, right? Fucking, that's I don't believe in it at all, right? And the main thing what James did with his university was he believed that a great education system is based on problem solving and not information reciprocation or whatever, what do you call it, like remembering information, but more problem solving. And so with his university, he essentially took students in and they actually worked in the business solving problems, and then he would teach them 2 days out of the week or something, or get someone to teach them. But yeah, nonetheless, this is another quote from James as well. I was asked if I ever thought of quitting. I said every day, but there was never a day I stopped. That is pretty cool when I read that, right? One of the greatest founders of all time thought about quitting almost every single day, but he never did. And so the people who become great, it's not like they don't feel like quitting or that they have this special ability to always be confident, right? I think we all know we should rather be confident than not, right? and believe to not quit and just to always pursue through friction or whatever. But even now, looking at that, James Dyson wanted to quit, but he just never did. And they just do it despite all the fear and doubt, because they know the only way they'll lose is if they give up. And the thing that motivates them is not the what do you call it? The idea of winning, right, and success, but rather out of the fear of losing. They don't want to lose above anything else. And so I think if that is your core fundamental, that motive, it's almost impossible to give up, right?
But I'm not sure why he said that he wanted to quit every day. That sounds miserable. I don't ever think of quitting. Not a single day I think of quitting. But he thought about it every single day. That sounds like he was in a terrible business model.
Well, I mean, it took him 5. So he created a new prototype every single day. And he created 5,100
feedback loop was.
So like all he saw was failure every day.
Yeah,
so like the main thing there for me is not that he thought about. I don't think it's a bad thing that you have doubt or fear. I think it's only negative if it leads to stopping. And his feedback loop was just extremely negative. So the fact that's why David Sandra speaks so highly of James, because there's almost no one that will be able for 15 years to devote their entire life to something that just looks like failure day in and day out, because their passion for the thing is just so insane, right? It's actually crazy that he went down that level so much. So back to Alex's backstory. Then a desperate gym owner called and begged Alex for help. So this is the segment that sort of everything changed for Alex, right? Tired of traveling, Alex decided to sell his process instead of doing the work himself. He randomly charged $6,000 and the client said yes. So basically, he was at this point with Layla traveling and launching gyms, right? Traveling out and launching it for them, doing all the sales, doing the pamphlets, whatever it might be. And he was like, fuck this, right? Like they're going all in with Layla's online coaching offer. And he just didn't want to travel anymore. It was just terrible, wasn't scalable as he wanted it to be. And now, one of those people or the potential clients he was going to launch the gym for them called Alex and told them like, yo, like, you need to come do this. And I was like, I'm not coming out, there's no ways. And he's like, okay, just teach me how to do it. And Alex like, I don't have time for this. He's like, okay, give me a number. How much can I charge you for this information? And Alex gave him the craziest number that he could think of because he didn't want to do it. And he said $6,000. And this guy actually paid him. And Alex was like, what? This guy paid $6,000 for mentorship or just information to launch it himself. And so he was pretty like shocked, right? And so the next gym owner called him again, and this time he charged $8,000, and then he charged $10,000. And in one day he sold $60,000 worth of gym launch systems. That moment changed everything. Alex realized his knowledge, his marketing scripts, ads, and sales systems was far more valuable than his time. Which I think is exceptional, right?
Might not be more valuable, but I think it's more scalable.
Yeah. And just coming back to like this entire system, right? Because now we found something that really like, this looks like scalable, this is going to be massive, right? But he would have never known that this was a valuable product or that he could sell this and be very profitable if he didn't spend time in the market, right?
Out of desperation.
Or out of desperation, but essentially taking action, right? Like that's the big thing. And so it all started by him dropping out, right? And following his passion, which was the gym. Then he found what he specifically liked doing in that niche or market, which was scaling the gyms, right? And after spending time in the niche market, really understanding his client and their wants and needs, a great opportunity to make good money stumbled on his way, right? It's not like he was searching for that, it just sort of stumbled over his path, right? Some people call that lucky. I'll call that like, he spent time in the market and he suffered to get lucky, right? And so Alex says there's 3 drivers behind creating something truly great: pain, profession, and passion. So essentially pain, you personally felt that problem that you were solving, right? Profession, you have the skill set or expertise to actually solve that problem better than most. And in passion, you care enough to keep iterating, improving, and serving. So if you've lived the pain, mastered the skill, and loved the mission, that's when you build something exceptional. Most people only have 1 or 2, the rare few who have all 3 create world-class products. And so the beauty of Alex's system right now, or where he is right now, is he sort of went through the pain. It was essentially his profession for a long time, and he has an extreme passion for that market, right? So
we literally have all three as well.
I know. So it's so pain, profession, and passion. Like that's the main thing. And Alex says if you just have one of those, you will be successful. Pretty cool. Soon, he and Layla called every gym owner they knew, offering the new gym launch package, right, which is just the info, all the systems as well, I guess. The response was massive. In 1 month, they made nearly 500K US. The next year, the company brought in $26 million in revenue and $70 million in profit. The profit margin was massive.
It's because it's a course.
Oh, okay,
High margins.
A course, or essentially a licensing model. They expanded into supplements and software, building a full ecosystem for gym owners. Alex had finally done what the Rockefeller once said was the secret to success. Do the common thing uncommonly well. By 32, Alex had achieved financial freedom. In 2021, he and Layla sold most of their company for $46.2 million. The same man who once slept on a gym floor, broke and stressed, was now free. Proof that betting on your own ideas can turn struggle into fortune.
Awesome, that's a pivotal part in his journey. And the next part is now where he's currently at, which is acquisition.com. And essentially, this is when he started building his brand. And imagine how cool it would have been if he documented everything from the start. Like sleeping on the gym floor. Imagine like, yo, what's up guys? I'm
out here sleeping.
Yeah, so I feel like it's cool to start documenting from the get-go. Like that's why Iman Gadzhi's personal brand is so powerful, because he documented from he was broke. Alex Hormozi only recently started to build his brand. When I think it was when Gym Launch started. So that's already like 3 to 5 years into it. But also then again, he says, oh no, but your brand will grow quicker once you've got some authority to back it. But both work. Both work. And I feel like, the one where you build your brand as you want to come up, I feel like it's more trustworthy.
I think there's a balance, because also, like in the beginning, I think the main focus majority should be on building the thing, the product. And like if you're documenting the journey or like you're filming a lot, like if it just mustn't take too much time. Like that's the main thing. And it takes long to get into the rhythm. But as soon as you have something you can see works well or whatever, there's a lot of value in that. So however you figure out how to systemize it or whatever, if you can film, it's massive long term. Yeah.
Cool. So this next part. So after selling Gym Launch for the 46.2 million, I believe, Alex suddenly had millions, but also a question. What now? He didn't want to be remembered only as the gym guy, right, in his niche. In 2021, he and Layla started acquisition.com, investing in and mentoring businesses to scale from a few millions to tens of millions. That which they already have experience in, right? Instead of buying companies outright, they took smaller shares and added massive value through strategy, systems, and leadership. As Alex said, we come in, write a check, add value, and help grow the business. Essentially consulting. It's basically that's all it is. They hop on a call with the CEO and founder, and they're like, okay, cool, do this.
Something that's very prevalent in here is this guy's got a passion for this stuff, right? Like he lives for this. I mean, imagine you got paid 46.2 million yesterday, and you decide yo, fuck this, let's start another business.
But the thing is, for a year he did nothing. I remember he said that was his most miserable year ever. Where he saw the business and it's
he
kind of peel that layer of the onion, and then that happens with everyone. It's you kind of finish that purpose, that layer of your purpose, you peel that onion layer, right? And you essentially want to go deeper and deeper. And now it's in no man's land.
Naval Ravikant says, right? This is a quote that I've repeated a couple times, but it's so true. It's the point of the game is to play the game, to ultimately win the game, to either get rid of the game or to continue playing the game out of the sheer enjoyment out of it, right?
Yeah, he won the game.
So he won the game, which was that current business, and essentially just the financial, to get money and get rich, right? That's the game he won. And so now he needs to decide two things. He either needs to play a new game, right? He needs to decide what's the new goal, or he's going to continue continue playing the game out of the sheer enjoyment out of it.
And that's definitely what he did.
And that's what he's doing right now. He loved the game so much that he's willing to play it without financial incentive. And so in that year, that we're not really summarizing in right now, but like he had to decide, like, what's his why now? It's not going to be out of proving his father incorrect or moving into a bigger house so that he can prove to his in-laws, right, that he is successful and prove to Layla that she made the right decision. This is now purely out of a sense of just enjoyment. And he's willingly suffering, building a business because he enjoys it. So he's a different breed, right?
So that ties directly into what he said here. We come in, write a check, add value, and help grow the business. It was full circle. Now he was the kind of investor you once wished for.
Oh, it's like a deep, yeah.
So basically full circle moment. And quote to tie that in is, he said, the only way to make money is to solve problems for people who can pay. Or solve rich people problems, they pay better, right? Because what he's doing is he's going to companies worth making like $1 million a year and scaling them to tens of millions. But now, I believe he's doing even further. He's doing 10 million to like 100 million.
Yeah.
So he started with $1 million to 10 million. For example, like us, we can't help people go from $1 million to 10 because we help people go from $0 to $10,000 a month or $10,000 to $20,000 a month, right? Like that is our sphere. But as we scale our business, right? Let's say the info does $100,000 a month. We can now help people with their info product. We can maybe add that as a new offer where we help info clients, maybe from South Africa, go from $10,000 to $100,000 a month with the info business because we've achieved that ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the only way to do it.
I also think to add on to that, right? It's like, he didn't sit there and think like, I don't know if I can do it, or like, no, it's, when you look on the outside of people starting a business or running a business, you tend to think like, this is so complex. How does he do it? This is so crazy or whatever. It's like, no, you just put one foot in front of the other, right? So even Alex, he says, volume negates luck. If you want confidence in any endeavor, right, you need to do tremendous amount of volume to a point where it would be unreasonable for you to suck at that thing. And it's not just doing more, it's doing more, looking at what worked, then doing more of what worked. Outwork your self-doubt, volume kills insecurity. I think that's a beautiful, like even if I look at my own journey of us building the podcast, building the agency, building the info product, just in anything that we do, it's inevitable that you will start doing that thing and it would feel like you suck. Why? Because you do. You suck. But you started. There's no ways around it. But 2 years down the line, you will suck a lot less. In fact, maybe you will even be pretty good at it. And the more you do the thing, the more you are essentially working through all the problems and solving all the problems to a point where now you have solved most of the problems. And it just gets so much better. But in the beginning, if like you're going to suck, it's inevitable. And every single founder goes through the exact same thing. They just stayed in the market for 20 years and now they are seen as an expert because they failed just more than everybody else.
So I've got a couple of things to say about this. So Naval said, be patient. It takes 10 years to build a career in anything. And 10 years, and here's the funny part. Alex Hormozi started his whole journey at 22. At 32, he achieved financial freedom and sold his business for 46 million. That's exactly 10 years.
Yeah.
So it takes 10 years basically, or around like 46.2 is more than enough. So like it takes around like 6 to 8 years.
Yeah.
Let's say 6 years, 7 years to really like now you basically set for life. But this is more than set for life. So.
And just before we continue as well, like Alex also said this exact quote, right? The craziest goals only seem crazy because of a short timeline. Extend the horizon and sanity returns. Almost every multi-million-dollar business you can think of, if like their majority of their biggest numbers, or especially relative to that current situation, I'm talking about the business makes $5,000 a month, and then all of a sudden it makes $200,000 a month, right? Like that big jumps usually happen between 6 to 8 years of a big business. And most people that are listening to this are 5 years into their entrepreneurship or whatever, or they've been thinking of doing business or self-help or whatever, but they've only been like 3 years into the current thing that they're working on because they jump around. It's that loop, or what do you call that loop again? The Dunning-Kruger effect. It's like that uninformed optimism, informed pessimism, right? And then it's like oh fuck this, this guy's doing dropshipping, look how much money he's making. And then
you reset the cycle.
Yeah. So like you've been doing entrepreneurship for 2 years, but you've only been working in the thing that you're doing right now for 2 months. And it clearly takes, obviously there's some exceptions, right? But the majority of great businesses that stay for a long while takes long. And so, or takes a while. And so it's time in the market.
But also remember, some business models have shorter timelines.
Yeah.
So acquisition.com is a decades long, it's like a century business.
Yeah.
But for example, Gym Launch, which is essentially like a consulting and course business, was only valid for like how much? 3 years, 4 or 5 years? I don't know. So
I mean, it's still running it. It's still very successful.
Okay, it is still successful. But most businesses, right? Like, for example, like an agency, you can run that for years, but it's not as scalable. Like, there's a certain point where you're kind of just stuck there. Then you need to go into other models, okay? But yeah, let's continue with the rest of his story. So at the same time, Alex began building a personal brand. So this is when he did this. That stood out for its honesty. Frustrated by fake gurus, he shared real business lessons for free on YouTube. Here's the thing as well. He could share this for free, and his whole message at the time was, I've got nothing to sell you. You remember that? But that was because he had like $50 million in the bank. So if you're doing this and you kind of get your clients from YouTube, like this is basically us doing like the Gym Launch, like we're selling a thing. But he could only say that because he had $50 million in the bank. And that ultimately, there's the thing, when he says, I've got nothing to sell you, he's essentially just making more money later. That's all he's doing. He's still making money when he says, I've got nothing to sell you, but he's doing it by building trust with the audience so he can then do a $100 million book launch. And instead of doing 5 million every 4 months, you know what I mean? But just do like 100 million like once.
It's like a concentrated sell.
Yeah. So, most people when they sell through like the YouTube, they do like a drip every 3 months, sell the audience. What he did is for 2 years did nothing, and then and then basically he sold, in 1 day, made a lot. So he shared real business lessons for free on YouTube, Twitter, and his podcast, The Game. His mission was simple: make business education accessible to everyone. So his books, $100 million offers in 2021 and $100 million leads in 2023 became bestsellers, teaching entrepreneurs how to create and sell great products. Both were sold at cost, basically, cost margins, because Alex believed in giving value first. Rich people master their time, he said, and he spent his help grow others. What did he say that? And he spent his helping others grow, essentially his time. So it's the exact same thing. Acquisition.com is basically the exact same thing as Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett. So Warren Buffett invests in undervalued companies like Alex Hormozi. What he's doing is dissecting a company, doing $1 million or $2 to $3 million a year, which basically he thinks it's undervalued, and he then buys a stake in it, gives the advice and the systems and the CEOs, whatever, and delegates. So Warren Buffett invested in undervalued companies and personally mentored young entrepreneurs through Berkshire Hathaway, taking small stakes and adding massive value through strategy, just as Alex Hormozi is doing, using acquisition.com to scale businesses from millions to tens of millions without taking full control. He's just following the greats, essentially. So, unlike most online coaches, Alex didn't sell overpriced courses or flash luxury cars. He showed up in sleeveless flannels and spoke with raw honesty. That authenticity made him one of the most trusted voices in business. So, this ties into what Paul Graham says, where he says, you need 3 things to create a successful startup. To start with good people, to make something customers actually want, and to spend as little money as possible. So basically a lifestyle, right? This aligns with Alex Hormozi's mentoring and free education efforts, where he helps entrepreneurs build authentic brands and offers, prioritizing free value creation and efficiency over hype, much like Paul Graham's Y Combinator guidance for founders. So, I think when he was making millions, his rent was still like $2,000 a month, right? But the thing is, he was also targeting a different type of client. So he was targeting people or businesses making $1 million a year. That is already successful entrepreneurs. But take Iman Gadzhi, for example. He is targeting more beginner entrepreneurs. So the flashy lifestyle actually is the best thing to do, because when you're starting out in your journey, like that is kind of what hooks you, right? It's the lifestyle. And if Iman didn't do the lifestyle, he would attract more, high quality people. That's essentially what he's doing with his business, Iman Gazi business, right? But with the main account, he's basically just, targeting more beginners, and that's why the lifestyle still sells. But it's getting more saturated. Like you kind of want to see how you want to understand your market very well, and it's constantly shifting as well. So you can't do lifestyle consistently. Now the meta, you'll see the new meta now is like family content, like morals and values. For example, a good example of this is Dan Martel. Like he's now popping off because it's more wholesome, it's more lifestyle, family, stuff like that. That is now the new meta, essentially. So as his wealth grew, so did his desire to give back. Inspired by Andrew Carnegie's belief that surplus wealth is a sacred trust, Alex and Lala donated millions to charity, including $1 million to Arnold Schwarzenegger's After School All-Stars program for underprivileged kids. By 2025, they announced plans to give away most of their fortune, living by their shared motto, "Leave it better than you found it," which is from Andrew Carnegie. And he gave away 90% of his $380 million steal fortune, which $380 million back in his day is like $1 billion now or something. And Andrew Carnegie only worked 3 hours a day, which is pretty cool. He gave away 90% of that to build 2,500 libraries and fund education for the masses. Just as Alex Hormozi shared business books at cost, exactly the same thing as Andrew Carnegie is doing. Alex is basically doing a library online, and sharing his books online at cost price, like $1 on Kindle, and pledged most of his fortune to charity. He had a pretty cool quote where he said, what did he say? Oh, this is like on a very private podcast getting like 1,000 views. He said that if you have a good son, like you don't need to give him money, and also if you have a bad son, you also don't want to give him money, right? Because if it's a bad son,
inheritance,
it's like he's gonna basically just blow everything. If you have a good son, he's gonna make his money himself.
Yeah.
So he's basically giving all of his fortune away as well, just as Andrew Carnegie did.
And so ending off like the entire section with Alex's story, right? Alex Hormozi's story isn't just about building businesses, it's about building himself. I think that's a very prevalent idea just in his entire mission statement and what he believes, right? In fact, I can get into that now. He said on a podcast with Jay Shetty that if we make who we become the goal instead of what we achieve, we win every day, not just once a decade. Most people chase outcomes like money, recognition, goals, and feel like failures until they arrive. But the truth is, those peaks are rare and uncommon, right? We don't see them a lot. If instead you shift the goal to growth of character, skill, and discipline, essentially the person you become while striving for the goal. The process itself becomes the goal, the process itself becomes the reward, and therefore your likelihood to achieve the goal will also increase as a byproduct. I think it's a cool way to look at it, right? Is that you are the goal, your ideal self is the goal. And as soon as you see that, it's easier to achieve the goal. Because also, it's like, let's say the goal was to make 100K a month. Like, by the time you achieve it, it doesn't even feel that fulfilling anymore, because the month before that, you probably made it 90,000, right? So like the jump there was just 10,000 extra. It's like every step of progression, you get closer to the goal, and then the value of that goal gets less because you're closer to it, right? But the reason why it was valuable when you set it was the contrast, was just so much higher. Like you probably was making 5K a month back then. So I think the person you become should be the goal. And like, it's not about making $1 million, it's about becoming the person worthy of that $1 million, right?
And the work is really there to facilitate you becoming that person.
Yeah.
And he says that the work works more on you than you on it. So the work is literally building you. So it's pretty cool.
And in his early 20s, he admits he was driven by insecurity and that he needs to prove his worth, right? Like I previously said, to his father, then to his mentors. I was searching for a father figure, he said, and that search led to painful mistakes and bad partnerships. But those struggles forced him to grow, to stop chasing approval and start trusting himself. 2 relationships changed everything: his partnership with Layla and the one who bought with himself. That's pretty cool. Like, I like how he gives a lot of credit to Layla, which is pretty eye-opening, because a lot of people in this space doesn't really value a partner that much, and I think it's cool and refreshing to see this from Alex. Henry Robotham taught him discipline, self-awareness, and the power of real skills. The one thing you can always protect yourself with is skills, he says, because if you can build once, you can build again. And that reinforces again that you are the goal, right? It's not the thing, it's that you are the goal.
And no recession can remove your skills, nothing can remove it, no economy crash, nothing, you always got your skills.
That belief turned him into a lifelong learner, and Andrew and I believe this as well, right? That's why we got the podcast, and I think Isaac Newton said we become successful because we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? And it's the only shortcut in life is utilizing other people's like shortcuts or information. Like if you go read or just watch David Senra's podcast of him reading biographies of the great founders, but there's books of them writing every single thing that they went through while building, let's say for example, Apple or Tesla or whatever, right? And you can essentially go and dissect and see what they were struggling with and just go and implement the solutions to their struggles, right, into your own business. It's probably the best thing that we have, or the closest thing we have to a shortcut. That belief turned him into a lifelong learner. Alex devours books, especially biographies of business titans like Andrew Carnegie, Rockefeller, and Sam Walton. One of his favorite quotes from Carnegie, "My heart is in the work," became his personal motto. Once again, this reinforces the fact that he was focused and obsessed. My heart is in the work. He learned that success comes from focus, not flashes of inspiration. Pick one thing and keep building, he says. The so-called overnight success of Jim Launch was really 5 years of failure, learning, and persistence. As Napoleon once said, victory belongs to the most persevering. A quote Alex has lived by. I think, what was David Senra's quote on his phone? We win by persistence, or something down that line. But it's essentially like, you will win by just literally not giving up. Like that, it's so cliche, but fuck, like it's true, right? Like every single one of these people are a manifestation of that, right? Maybe it's a viber's bias, like maybe there's a lot of people that didn't give up and we just don't know they're successful, right? And every single person that we know is successful, well, they obviously didn't give up, so that at some point they had to be, right? But I truly believe that to be the case. Like if you are obsessed with something and you are focused and you have some form of why that's linked to impacting others and serving other people, right? And you just don't give up, it's fucking inevitable. Like I can't see how it won't happen. But the problem is, or the question comes, can you endure 15 years of 5,126 prototypes of pure failure to get the one prototype that makes you a billionaire? Like, that's a different question, right? He often calls Layla the Charlie Munger to my Warren Buffett. That's
crazy.
That is crazy. I don't know if I want that type of relationship. There is. But fair enough. Obviously works for him. Recognizing that their balance makes them stronger, his golden rule in business is simple. Make it the best deal the other person will ever make. That philosophy turned competitors into partners and deals into lifelong relationships. I think that reinforces the idea that you are optimizing for a great product. Like I think you also said, Alex, that the goal should be to build a product that the world can't help themselves but try and knock down the door to get it. Right? Then marketing is almost irrelevant. If you have a great product, it markets itself. And so even in the beginning, if your product is great, marketing doesn't necessarily, like obviously great marketing is part of it.
I also think it depends on the business model.
Could be, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But in general, if your product is good, the product is going to sell itself.
Like for example, an agency is almost only marketing.
Yeah, but I mean,
80% marketing.
Yeah. But like a good product, or like if your agency has a great service, like I mean his business model, like that was still an agency, and his business model, how did that even work? Like he got a couple of clients from marketing, of course, But then when he pivoted into essentially info, or what did he call it, licensing model, that all came down, like every single client he signed off that was just referrals.
Yeah.
Because he signed the one client and that led to him realizing, okay, this business is great. And then he wanted to scale, he just added the marketing aspect, right? But yeah.
Yeah, it's also stages in your journey. Like in the beginning, no one knows you, so you literally have to do marketing, and then from there optimize the product, and then from there you can scale it with marketing. So it's like this ebb and flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now in his 30s, Alex's motivation has shifted from money to meaning. He's honest about his dark moments, times he didn't want to keep going, and uses those lessons to help others. Most advice we give to strangers is what we wish we could tell our younger selves. I also think if most people followed their own advice, me included, you know, we'd all just be extremely successful. It's very easy to give someone else advice. Today, Alex is doing exactly that, creating the books, content, and mentorship he once needed. He's no longer the man chasing approval. He's the mentor helping others find purpose. Very wholesome ending to his current biography. Obviously, it's still being written. He's still very young. But yeah.
Still unwritten.
Still.
This is some.
Yeah.
But now he's pivoting more into live streams, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
He's changing up his entire content strategy. So just more time spent essentially with him.
And more authenticity. And like, I mean, this guy, like he's pivoting completely into personal branding. He's already pivoted, right? And I think that's a testimony to the importance of all of this, right? Like he also spoke about, you know, when he was talking to Mr. Beast about, you know, content or whatever. I think he was doing, I'm not exactly sure the backstory behind it, but the main preference of what I'm trying to convey is you know, what is important. So they were walking into a stadium, and then like some A-list celebrities walked into the stadium, and the crowd sort of went wild or whatever. It was like Zac Efron and whatever from like the Hollywood movie stars, and like people were cheering, right, but it wasn't like that crazy. And then like these short format like TikTok influencers came out, and yeah, you could see like, okay, the crowd is sort of cheering a lot more. And then you got the podcast and YouTube is coming out, and now the crowd really went wild. And then the last people who walked up, like Kai Cenat, Speed, like the guys from FaZe, it was live streaming, right? Essentially, the people that are watching those live streams are spending countless of hours, like the whole day with him. And the crowd went crazy. And Alex said that he believes, and that's why he's pivoting into streaming now as well, is that the type of viewer that you get from someone spending his whole day with you compared to a short reel, right, is completely different. If you look at these TikTok influencers trying to book out a meet and greet or whatever, compared to the longer format videos, compared to imagine Speed trying to do a meet and greet. Like bro, he shut down the entire country of China. Like just because it's ridiculous, the amount of numbers and essentially not authority, but it's like the type of relationship that you build with someone is different. And yeah, I think there's something to that. I'm not too sure.
Even artists. For example, you place one song on repeat. You know, like you just that's 3 minutes. Like
that's a good point.
That's why people like Drake or
oh fucking Drake, new song.
And it's because it's like
it's a cult.
It's relatable. You play it everywhere, in the gym, in the car, like literally everywhere. People play music, and sometimes on repeat. So
yeah,
it's almost like you spend time with it.
And it's authority, because now you're spending like let's say you listen to Drake's new album,
and
like for that month you just listening to him. Now in your mind it's like Drake is everywhere. Drake is you know. Meanwhile, it's just you listening to his thing. That's your own niche relationship with him, right? But Drake has no idea where the fuck you are, right? Like, he has no idea. Whereas if you're watching like a TikTok or something, like you will see one clip for 10 seconds, you think it's funny, then you scroll to a different one. It's not that you are just seeing this one person, right? Unless you are on someone's TikTok just doom scrolling their own page, but no one does that, right? And so, yeah.
And Drake is with you at every stage, basically. Like when you down in the dumps, there's a song for that. When you want to get a PR, there's a song for that. When you're just chilling, there's a song for that. We might become artists.
So yeah, but I hope this video served you guys. I think it was a good summary, and I think Alex's entire journey once again just repeats the main message that I get from the majority of entrepreneurs is just if you're obsessed with something and ruthlessly focused, you're not really going to fail. You just need to stay in the game long enough to see yourself succeed. and I think that's his life is a game of pure nutrition, like just literally sitting there and throwing a ball until the wall until something sticks or whatever. I think it's good.
Yeah, last quote to sum it up. On his Twitter, he said, if you're torn between two paths, pick the harder path, because if the easier path were the right path, you'd have picked it already. There you go. If you're torn between two paths, pick the harder one, because it will also give you a cooler story as well.
I agree.
Cool.
All right.